I arrived at the Riverside Hotel ballroom wearing the navy dress I bought on credit. It was simple, pressed, appropriate. My mother was hosting her annual charity gala. 80 guests, local donors, a few minor city officials. I wasn't expecting warmth, but I thought I'd at least be allowed to exist quietly in the back. She met me at the entrance. "Claire, thank God you're here." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "We're short 2 servers. I need you to change." She held out a black service apron and a white button-down shirt still wrapped in plastic. Behind her, my stepfather Richard adjusted his cufflinks. My step-siblings, Vanessa and Tripp, stood near the coat check, watching. Vanessa smirked. Tripp looked at his phone. No one said a word in my defense. I took the uniform. My mother's tone left no room for negotiation, and I'd learned years ago that resistance only made things worse. The apartment I rented was actually hers. The car I drove was registered in her name. Fighting her in public would cost me more than my dignity. "You're so generous," she said louder, pivoting toward a passing couple. "She insisted on helping tonight." I changed in the staff bathroom. My hands shook as I buttoned the shirt. When I came out, someone handed me a tray of shrimp skewers. I started serving. The humiliation wasn't loud. It was coded, surgical. Vanessa brushed past me in the hallway and tipped her wine glass just enough to splash Merlot across my shoulder. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she said, voice dripping with fake concern. A coordinator rushed over with a backup shirt. This one 2 sizes too large, sleeves hanging past my wrists. I changed again. My mother worked the room like a campaigning politician, touching elbows, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. At one point, I stood near her circle holding a tray of champagne, and I heard her say, "Claire's still figuring things out. No career yet, but we're patient. She lives with us, so at least she's not alone." The guests nodded politely. One woman glanced at me, then looked away. In the kitchen, Richard cornered me while I was refilling ice. "Your mother's doing you a favor letting you stay in that apartment," he said quietly. "Don't embarrass us out there." I nodded, didn't argue, went back out. An older man in a gray suit tried to hand me a $20 bill after I refilled his water. My mother intercepted, laughing brightly. "Oh, that's not necessary. She's family." She pocketed the bill. I swallowed the anger, kept moving. My face burned, but I didn't cry. I'd learned to compartmentalize, catalog the wounds, survive the night. That was all I thought I had to do. Around 7:30, the event coordinator, a woman in her 50s with a tablet and a headset, approached my mother near the silent auction table. She held a large envelope, cream-colored, with a return address I couldn't quite read. "Mrs. Brennan, this just came by courier, marked priority." My mother waved her off without looking. "I'll handle it later. Claire, take that to the study." She handed it to me like it was junk mail. I carried it through the hallway and into the side office they'd reserved for coats and bags. I set it on the desk, and that's when I saw the name on the front. Dr. Claire Olivia Brennan. Not my mother. Me. My full legal name. The one I used on my graduate applications. The return address was from the Kirby Foundation, a name I recognized but hadn't heard from in months. I stared at it. My pulse spiked. Before I could process what it meant, someone called my name from the ballroom. I slipped the envelope into my coat pocket on instinct, a flicker of defiance I didn't fully understand yet. No one had ever handed me anything that mattered. I wasn't about to let her take this one. At 8 o'clock, my mother clinked her glass. The room quieted. She stood near the podium, radiant in a champagne-colored gown, and began her speech. She talked about community, generosity, the importance of giving back. She named sponsors, thanked the venue. Then she turned toward me. "I also want to thank my daughter, Claire, who graciously offered to help serve tonight. She's teaching herself the value of hard work, and I couldn't be prouder." The applause was polite, sporadic. I stood near the kitchen door, still holding a tray, frozen. Vanessa whispered something to Trip. He grinned. Richard raised his glass in a mock toast. My mother kept going. Claire's still exploring her options, finding her path. Not everyone can be high achievers like Vanessa and Trip, and that's okay. We love her just the same. My hands trembled. The tray tilted. A glass slid an inch before I caught it. The room felt like it was collapsing inward. My vision narrowed. My ears rang, but I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't cry. I'd spent years learning not to react. This was just another test. What I didn't know yet was that the test was already over. I made it to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the closed toilet seat. My breathing was uneven. My chest ached. I pulled the envelope from my coat pocket with shaking hands. I opened it carefully, almost afraid it would disintegrate. The letter inside was printed on thick, official stationery. Dear Dr. Brennan, it is our distinct honor to inform you that you have been selected as one of 12 recipients nationwide for the 2025 Kirby Foundation Fellowship in Environmental Systems Research. This award includes full funding for doctoral study, an annual stipend of $48,000, and a one-time research grant of $150,000. Your proposed work on watershed rehabilitation in post-industrial zones was deemed exceptional by our review panel. The fellowship will be formally announced at tonight's gala during the second half programming. I read it 3 times. The application. I'd submitted it 8 months ago during a 2-week window when my mother was traveling and I had access to a mailing address that wasn't hers. I'd used a P.O. box, kept it off my phone, told no one. I didn't think I'd get it. The Kirby was one of the most competitive environmental fellowships in the country, and they were announcing it. Here, tonight. I looked at myself in the mirror, wrinkled shirt, smudged mascara, hair falling out of its clip. Then I smiled. For the first time in years, I smiled. I washed my face, tucked in the shirt, smoothed my hair. I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell her. I was going to let it happen exactly the way it was supposed to. I walked back into the ballroom and picked up my tray. My mother was talking to a donor near the bar. Vanessa was taking selfies by the floral arch. Richard was laughing too loud at someone's story. None of them looked at me. I refilled their drinks, cleared their plates, smiled when my mother snapped her fingers and pointed at an empty champagne flute. The event coordinator passed by twice, scanning the room with her tablet. She looked stressed. I stayed out of her line of sight. I wanted them to stay comfortable just a little longer. The calm I felt wasn't euphoria. It was something steadier, colder. I knew what was coming, and I knew they didn't. That knowledge settled into my bones like armor. At 8:40, the coordinator found me near the dessert table. Claire Brennan? I turned. Why are you in a uniform? You're supposed to be backstage. My mother appeared instantly laughing. Oh, sweetie, you've got the wrong person. Claire's just helping out tonight. She's not part of the program. The coordinator frowned, tapped her tablet, then turned the screen toward my mother. She's listed here. Keynote Fellowship recipient. We've been looking for her for 20 minutes. My mother's face went slack. Richard stepped closer. That's not possible. The coordinator's voice stayed calm, professional. I need you backstage now, Dr. Brennan. We're starting the awards segment in 10 minutes. My mother tried to step between us. There's been some kind of mistake. She didn't tell us about any award. I finally spoke. You didn't ask. The silence that followed felt like glass breaking. They followed me backstage. My mother, Richard, Vanessa, Tripp, all of them. My mother's voice oscillated between disbelief and forced cheer. Is this a prank? Claire, if this is some kind of joke. It's not, the coordinator said flatly. She handed me a garment bag. We have formal attire for you. You've got 6 minutes. Richard demanded to see the letter. I didn't respond. Vanessa tried mockery first. It's probably some participation thing. Then, when the coordinator confirmed the fellowship amount, she pivoted instantly. Oh my God, that's amazing, Claire. Why didn't you tell us? My mother's smile was skeletal. We should go out together, as a family. I stepped into the changing area. They removed the apron, the oversized shirt, replaced it with a sleek black sheath dress and a blazer that actually fit. I looked at my mother through the mirror. No, I said quietly. You made your choice when you handed me the apron. Her expression cracked, just for a second. Rage flickered beneath the mask before she forced it back into place. I turned and walked toward the stage entrance. She didn't follow. The MC was a local news anchor I vaguely recognized. She transitioned smoothly from my mother's charity appeal to the fellowship segment. Our final award tonight is one of extraordinary distinction, she said. The Kirby Foundation Fellowship is awarded to just 12 researchers nationwide. This year's recipient has proposed transformative work in environmental restoration that our panel believes will reshape how we approach watershed recovery. She paused. Please welcome Dr. Claire Brennan. The applause started before I stepped into the light. I walked from the wing to center stage. The spotlight was blinding. I could barely see the audience, but I heard the murmurs. Confusion, recognition. Someone whispered, "Wait, isn't that?" A woman in the third row covered her mouth. I accepted the award, a glass sculpture heavier than I expected, and stepped to the microphone. I gave my prepared remarks, 30 seconds, gracious, professional. I thanked the foundation, mentioned my research focus, expressed gratitude for the opportunity. I didn't mention my family. I didn't need to. When I finished, the applause was louder. Some of it felt uncomfortable, people clapping because they didn't know what else to do. I stepped off the stage and caught a glimpse of my mother's table. Vanessa's face was frozen mid-smile. Tripp stared at his phone like it held answers. Richard's jaw was tight. My mother sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, silent. After the ceremony, people I didn't know congratulated me. A professor from the state university asked for my contact information. A woman from an environmental nonprofit mentioned potential collaboration opportunities on wetland projects in the northern counties. My mother tried to join the conversations. Twice, people turned their backs. The man who tried to tip me earlier, gray suit, kind eyes, shook my hand. I'm glad someone recognized your work, he said, just loud enough for others to hear. It's clear you've earned this. A few people nearby exchanged glances. One woman looked toward my mother's table, then back at me, her expression shifting. Richard tried to leave early. My mother refused, her jaw tight, her smile brittle. The event coordinator found me near the exit. I'm so sorry, she said quietly. I didn't realize what was happening earlier. That shouldn't have. It's fine, I said, and I meant it. My mother offered me a ride home as I was gathering my coat. Her voice was strained, performative. We should talk. We can celebrate properly. I declined. A colleague from the fellowship cohort, someone I'd met briefly during the interview process, offered instead. I accepted. As I walked out, I glanced back one last time. My mother stood alone near her reserved table, watching me leave. The ballroom was still full, but no one was talking to her. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just left. Within 48 hours, I was out. The fellowship included a relocation stipend and a housing allowance. I signed a lease on a studio apartment near the university on Sunday. It was small, 600 square feet, older appliances, but it was mine. I packed my things on Monday. I didn't take anything she'd paid for. My phone lit up constantly. Voicemails from my mother. Apologies, then accusations, then bargaining. You're overreacting. We need to talk about this like adults. You're being cruel. Text from Vanessa. So proud of you, sis. Let's celebrate soon. I didn't respond. Richard left a voicemail invoking authority he no longer had. You owe your mother a conversation. This is childish, Claire. I blocked his number. I updated my address with the foundation, rerouted my mail, changed my emergency contacts to my advisor and a friend from my cohort. The coordinator called again a week later. She mentioned, carefully, that several guests had reached out after the event to express concerns about the family dynamic. One couple had quietly withdrawn their sponsorship from my mother's charity. I thanked her, told her it wasn't her responsibility. I started my fellowship orientation the following week. The lab was cluttered, outdated, and welcoming. My cohort was small, 11 others, all equally exhausted and passionate. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. 3 months later, my mother sent a letter. Not an email, a physical letter, forwarded through the foundation because she didn't have my new address. She claimed she'd had a health scare, said she wanted to meet, needed closure. Her handwriting was shaky. Whether from genuine distress or calculated performance, I couldn't tell anymore. I sat with it for 2 days. I talked to my therapist, a woman in her 60s who'd been helping me untangle years of conditional love and strategic neglect. I talked to a friend from my cohort over coffee. I processed the impulse to respond, to fix, to return to a role I'd been taught to play since childhood. Then I wrote back, one sentence. I hope you find peace. I've found mine. Don't contact me again. I mailed it. Blocked her number, blocked Vanessa's, blocked Richard's, removed them from every platform. 2 weeks later, I presented my preliminary research at a departmental seminar. My advisor called it promising. A visiting scholar from Oregon asked follow-up questions that made me rethink my sampling methodology in ways I hadn't considered. Afterward, I went to dinner with my cohort. We talked about our projects, our frustrations, the small victories that only other researchers understand. No one asked me to serve them. No one questioned whether I belonged. That night, walking back to my apartment, I realized something. The moment my name was called wasn't the vindication. This was the quiet, the autonomy, the ability to fail or succeed on my own terms. My mother had tried to make me invisible. Instead, I'd built a life where I didn't need her to see me at all. A year later, my research was published in a peer-reviewed journal. It wasn't glamorous. Most environmental work isn't, but it mattered. A regional conservation group reached out about implementing my findings in a pilot project. 2 graduate students asked if I'd consider mentoring them. I heard, through a mutual acquaintance I hadn't spoken to in months, that my mother's charity had quietly dissolved. 3 major sponsors had pulled funding after the gala. Not because of me directly, but because people started asking questions about financial transparency and where the donations actually went. I didn't follow up. It wasn't my concern anymore. That spring, I was invited to speak at a workshop for first-generation graduate students, people navigating academia without family support or generational wealth to fall back on. I talked about resilience, about building a life on your own terms, about recognizing when staying is more dangerous than leaving. I didn't name my family. I didn't need to. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She was shaking slightly, holding a notebook to her chest like a shield. Your story gave me courage to leave, she said quietly. I've been trying for 2 years. I'm doing it next month. I hugged her, told her I was proud of her, gave her my email in case she needed support. And I realized the vindication wasn't the announcement or the fellowship or even the publication. It was this, building something that proved them wrong just by existing. My mother wanted me to disappear. Instead, I became exactly who I was supposed to be. I don't think about her much anymore. When I do, it's not with anger, it's with distance. The kind of distance you feel looking at a city from an airplane, recognizing the shape of it, but no longer living in its streets. I remember the moment I walked off that stage, award in hand, future in motion, entirely and irrevocably mine. They tried to make me invisible. I chose to be unforgettable.